Pete and Julian asked me if I might share with you our journey on the apprenticeship levy road, and it's been a journey. So I'm going to spend the next half an hour just sort of really top line talking you through what that's looked like for us as Delaware North. See if any of you can empathise with where we've been over the last few years. So, and that's probably the key thing actually, it's been the last few years. So I'm going to talk you through headlines 2015 and to this moment that I stand before you today. So 2015 is when it all started for us, and this is truly and honestly what it looked like for us. I don't know if any of you can relate to that. It was just a lot of white noise. And I've got Kerry and Sarah here with me this afternoon. Kerry's our Learning and Development Business Partner and Sarah's our Learning and Development Coordinator. And all of us were just like completely blown over by a lot of confusion, a lot of really bad mixed messaging. We felt really out of our depths and we felt really overwhelmed, and I felt really accountable because all I knew was that I had this huge tax coming my way, and in my role in our company in the UK it was on me to make sure that we responsibly did something with this tax, and we didn't end up as one of the people that were on those statistics earlier as a company where we just paid the tax and it just went into the government pot, never to be seen again. White noise, random talk without meaningful content. That was a lot of what we did in 2015. Yeah, that was very much where we were at. And we kept avoiding it. I'm going to be really honest with you. We just kept avoiding the subject. You know, it would come, it would just land on my desk. People kept bamboozling us with all sorts of information, emails just from all these people we'd never heard of. Just kept clicking delete, thinking, oh, it's not coming yet, it's coming in 2017, delete, delete, delete. And that was my life. But it evolved because obviously it had to. So it evolved into a lot of research. We did a lot of networking. We went to tons of events. We met tons of people. That just made it worse. Because then we just knew even more about stuff that we didn't know anything about. And everything that we knew conflicted. So that just made it even more confusing and the white noise got worse. So then we started talking to the business about it, and then we realised that we were just confusing them because we didn't know what we were talking about. So then we just kind of took a real step back and thought, let's just think about the art of the possible. We've got a big tax coming our way. We're always moaning about the fact that we don't have enough money to invest in developing people. So let's just turn this on its head and think now we are going to have a lot of money to invest in people because we're going to have this tax. So let's just stop messing with the business and let's just start talking to the business in different language, and let's just say to them, how are we going to invest this money to help our business grow? And let's just start growing up ourselves, stop avoiding the issue, stop consuming all this information that we don't really know what we're doing with, and let's just start trying to think about what we should do, and then let's just make all of this information work for us. So we did discover some few things on our journey in our industry. Staff retention in our industry is a huge problem. We know that anyway, but it is a really, really big issue. And we also know that our industry is one of the fastest growing industries in this country, and the tourism and hospitality industry will continue to grow. And so by 2022, there's a requirement for an enormous amount more staff, and that within itself is really scary. So there are two things we knew there. We have an issue with retention, and we're a really big growing industry. So actually having a levy to invest and develop people is important for us. We discovered a load of other facts and figures as well, all of which are really important, but two of the really important ones were 68% of apprenticeship employers believe that apprentices improve productivity in their business, and 80% of companies who invested in apprentices report an increase in staff retention. So we started thinking, okay, so we just need to make some facts and figures work for us, because we need to sell a story to the operators, because in the world we work in, there's never any time to develop people because we're busy doing stuff. That's what we always get told. So we had to kind of cut through that and help our operators understand that we need to go on this journey. So we discovered a few things that were really important for us. We needed to work out the impact of the levy on our business. We needed to consider the future needs of our business. Then we had this whole new piece of discovery on getting familiar with the new apprenticeship standards and the assessment. That was a big discovery for us and a very steep learning curve for us. So then we had to think about the best training options for our business and what did that really look like. And we went down tons of blind alleys there, but we got there in the end. And then we had to start planning for change because we recognised through all of that journey of 2015 that our change journey was literally going to be enormous. So we were exhausted by the end of 2015 and we hadn't actually got anywhere apart from learning. So that was what the beginning of our Levy journey looked like. So then we got to 2016. And so I thought I'd start by saying in 2016, I started my year by focusing our business on what our business strategy was. So we are a global company, we're privately owned and we're American. And our owners are a family and they're great. And they have a real vision, and this is their vision. So somewhere in my head, I thought, so we kind of need to join the dots up here, because in America, they don't understand the meaning of the word apprenticeship levy. All they were looking at was a budget sheet coming down the track for 2017 with all this money on it. So I knew that I needed to join all of that up to help that work. So this is our business strategy. And the most important thing for me was that they view the strategic deployment of people to be our most important business decision. So I thought, hooray, I have got something that I can wrap this all around. The deployment of our people is really important. And at our core, we drive and thrive on being innovative. So I thought, great, let's make this really innovative because that is something that is at the core of what we believe in strategically. So started to form a plan in my head on how we can make this all work. I belong to our leadership team on a global level, and then conveniently we did a piece of work on the people of our business, and we drew a picture, here is our picture, of what we'd like our headline story to be 4 years from now. This was in 2016. So in 2020, we wanted this to be our UK story. So the Hotel and Caterer is our trade magazine, and we wanted these to be our headlines. So again, we were thinking, this is really great for us in terms of our Levy story, because this is all about our people, all about how we achieve some amazing things as a business. Of course, we're not there yet. But in 2020, we want to be able to say we did all this, and we did all this because of our people. And how did we enable us to have such amazing people? Well, because we invested in them, we developed in them. And how did we do all of that? Because we had this money, and with this money we did ... So it all started to take shape, and all that awful white mess in our heads started to formulate. So it did, and then it didn't, because we got to here and we thought this is our 2020 success story, and we were in 2017. So then what happened was the getting from 2016 to 2020 went back to looking like this. So we were just, right, so back to square one, thought we were getting somewhere, and then it all got really complicated again. And then we had this really big aha moment, which might seem really obvious standing here today and potentially to all of you, but for us at the time, it was really an aha moment in that we just needed a plan. And we needed to formalise everything that we got, and we needed to just put it into a plan. So what we did was we simplified and streamlined the experts that we needed to meet with in terms of research. We built a comms plan for our business in terms of the journey we've been on so far, where we were at and where we needed to get to. We assessed how ready we were, which wasn't very ready. We selected training providers, so Pete is completely right. We met in Costa Coffee at Wembley. I was late, he bought me a coffee. We sat there for hours, and I walked out of that coffee shop and thought, he's going to sort my life out, this is all going to be fine, I'm there.
Professionally.
I went back and said to Kerry, I need you to meet this guy, I think I found the solution. Everything's going to be great, because I'm just a visionary. I don't know how to get to great, but Kerry does, so that was all perfect. We do have, in our world, culinary is a real specialism for us, so we did also need to think about culinary in that piece. We found a sponsor because we also thought that would help us. And then we knew that we had to link everything that we were thinking to our actual talent and succession protocols, because internally that needed to join up, because we need to, in terms of who this was all going to fit into, there needed to be a plan there. So we did a ton of work that year on our own internal performance framework, our succession pools, and how we did all of our talent evaluation and talent discussions, and that worked as well. That was amazing. We launched a pilot scheme. I'll tell you a bit more about the pilot scheme in a few more moments, but we launched a pilot, and thank God we did. If we hadn't launched the pilot, I don't know what would have happened to us, because the pilot went wrong. But what we learned from the pilot is what's enabling me to stand here today in one piece. And then we needed a brand identity to put this all together with, to make it all seem amazing. So our brand was Next. So the reason it's Next for us really worked, because during this time as a company, we had our 100th birthday. Our chairman handed the ownership of the company over to his sons, and we launched as a company a whole new generation, and the generational change was what's next for Delaware North, and this was the logo. So I went to America and personally asked them if we could nick the logo and name our academy Next. And to my sheer and utter delight, they said yes. So that was great. So it was fantastic for us. What's next for Delaware North in the UK? What's next for our people in Delaware North for the UK? What's next for the next generation of our business? And so everything kind of made sense. We didn't even need to explain it. Everyone just got it. So everything became Next. It was all about Next. Then we went through and started to get really organised. Kerry did this, not me. We worked through from the hiring process, through the welcome process, through business comms, funding management, programme management, and content development, who was actually going to own what. And not surprisingly, when we actually compartmentalised everything that needed to happen and somebody owned what needed to happen, quelle surprise, stuff started happening. So that was great. We started to make massive progress at that point. So that was kind of towards the end of that year. And at the end of 2016, we found ourselves in a much better place than we were at the end of 2015, which was great, because obviously the day of taxation was really looming then, because I actually submitted it in my financial plan for 2017. So we arrive at 2017. So then we had to kind of really get into the detail. So we really started talking as the exec team about what our real challenges are currently. So we got really serious then. We talked about the fact that we don't really have enough talent ready for our business needs. We were really grown up and honest with ourselves to say that we hadn't really over time invested time or money in getting people ready for their next. So what that was resulting in is that we were going out to market to hire people when vacancies arose, because we didn't have people sitting waiting in the wings when those vacancies did arise. There was lack of opportunity for people, because that was kind of the reverse effect of that. When vacancies were arising, people weren't ready for them, but conversely, people were going outside to get their next because we couldn't give it to them. And so there was a potential risk here to our own actual employment brand because of what was going on. So the core message to our leaders in our field was that we actually need to address all of this, and we've got a plan to do that. We then had lots of internal discussions about the abstract concept of what do we really mean when discussing talent, because in the world of HR, we can talk about it forever and be really happy about it. But when you're talking to the actual field operators, especially in the event industry, it's quite hard for them to really, they say, well, what are you actually talking about? What does that actually mean? So we had lots of discussions about that. We had lots of discussions about what does investing in talent mean? Is it on the job? Is it part released? Is it fully released? Do we even know? And it was interesting to hear what you were talking about earlier, because the minute you start talking to managers in our world saying, well, maybe they could have a day a week to go to college, they just want to chop your head off. Well, maybe they could, maybe you could just give them half a day a week to study. People just look at you as if you have got two heads. And then we were talking about how do we really identify and validate talent? Do we know what the kind of pound commitment really is? We didn't really know at that point. And how on earth do we measure the return on that investment? We didn't really know. This is where Pete and Julian really helped us. We then had a real conversation about what do we really think about our current external learning solutions that we were using, the internal ones that we do ourselves. We've got an e-learning portfolio. We have opportunities in our company for secondments internationally, nationally. We asked the business what do they really think about all of that. They didn't really know, because I'm not sure they were that interested. And then we had another conversation about what do we really think of our ability to make a change, about our ability to grow our own leaders, and our ability to influence the stakeholders we needed to commit to have a different approach. And so this was about our operators out in the field. Because if we couldn't win their hearts and minds, if we couldn't help them understand the opportunity that we've got, and if they weren't going to come on the journey with us, it wasn't never going to work. And we knew that from our pilot that went wrong. Because in our pilot that went wrong, the only reason it went wrong, because we put a lot of time, effort and energy into it, was because what we absolutely didn't do was equip our leaders to look after our learners. And so there was nothing wrong with our learners, there was nothing wrong with the programme, but our leaders weren't competent enough to lead the learners, if that makes sense. They were really good at their day jobs, don't get me wrong, really good at their day jobs, but they just weren't equipped to live in a learning environment. And that was one of our kind of big epiphany moments. We don't have a learning culture in the way we need to have to manage this scale of funding. So, we were having some fantastic conversations with Julian during all of this time, who was really helping us work through in our heads, you know, are we typical, are we atypical, are other companies having this kind of problem? What do we do about it? What do we do about it? And we realised that we couldn't bring in 16 to 18-year-olds in the volume that we would need to commit to our levy. And we couldn't bring them in because we didn't have the leaders with the right skill sets to manage them and look after them responsibly. It just wouldn't work for us right now in our evolution. What we needed to do was invest in our leaders, and that was so glaringly obvious to us. It became apparent and to what we needed to do next. What we needed to do next was build a leadership development programme. So I hear everything we're saying about investing in 16 to 18-year-olds, and that's what the levy's for, etc., etc. And I truly, absolutely get that. That's where we want to get to. We can't go there unless we've got a learning culture, unless we've got leaders that can responsibly invest in those young people. So we've got to go back a step to go forwards, and that we know that it's played out over our journey so far. I just put this in because this is our model on what high potential looks like, and it's important because the programs that we've built have been, again, with Julian's support, with the CMI, we've built them, we've tailored them, they're totally bespoke to us. So they're relevant and pertinent. They're about leadership skills, the principles of leadership, but they capture everything that's Delaware North as well. And so people get them, and people understand them, and people buy into them. And for us, this is it. It's as simple as it gets. For us, we want to invest in people's journeys to bring their potential to life so that as individuals, they can achieve what they can achieve, but collectively, we can all be successful. So again, to the beginning of this morning, it's so true. I can be really successful myself, but I can be way more successful if I know how other people around me can help me be successful, and if we can all work together to capitalise on our collective success. We then built a pathway which looked like meeting with the experts. We also recognised that we just didn't know how to do that, so we met with Julian. Julian features a lot in our lives, you might have noticed that by now. We shared everything we'd been through with Julian and just said, help us work this out. We collaborated a lot with the business because we also recognised the journey of change we've got to go on is enormous. So if the business aren't involved in the build and involved in the design and involved in the journey, they're not going to be involved in the change. So one of the exec leaders that I work with has been involved with us every step of the way and has kept us truly honest the whole way through. We took all our lessons from our pilot. We spoke to the managers on the pilot that got stressed, traumatised, and didn't succeed, and we asked them what it was that we could do differently another time around so that we make sure that we don't fail them again. And then we built phase 2. And that's what we've been doing in the first half of this year. And this is what phase 2 looks like. So what we now have is, we did some whole work on culture about how things do work around here, which has been really interesting. We've built a mentoring program, so we've used a company, we've got, everybody got interviewed who wanted to be part of it. We've got mentors who've been trained, and we've got super mentors who are not part of Delaware North, who are there to support the mentors. Because when you're mentoring for the first time, it can be very overwhelming, and your mentee is looking to you for guidance and support, and sometimes as a mentor, you yourself need guidance and support. We knew that we needed 3 frameworks. We needed a management development framework, a culinary framework, and a specialist function framework. At the moment, we've only launched the management framework because we also realised we can't achieve everything overnight. So the management framework is the first one that we've launched. It's underpinned by our levy funding, and we also have our own internal programmes, so we're not belittling what we do because we think that what we do is also good. And then the cohort that are part of this framework are our future leader cohort, because it's then investing in and developing and recognising and rewarding our future leaders so that they can actually become our future leaders. So kind of in summary, for us, as we focus on our growth, particularly as we consider acquisition options and a footprint into mainland Europe, which is what our own strategy is, we know that our people are our biggest asset, and therefore for us, using the apprenticeship levy as part of our talent strategy to invest in the development of our future leaders became an absolute no-brainer. So that's what we did. We actually now are able to put down quite succinctly what our measurements of success are, which are these on the screen, compared to 2015 when we hadn't got a clue. So, to Pete's point, we have just over 40 people now signed up to enter the academy from our high potential community. And those are our people whose career progression we will now watch, and that will be our measure of success. Obviously, successful completion of the programme will be one of our measures. A reduction in external hiring for vacancies that arise over the next, from here onwards, will be another measure of success. Longer length of service in our academy alumni network will be an easy measure of success. We don't have that attrition rate because we can't fulfil people's aspirations. And then higher levels of performance in the business. So, as I stand here now in November, we have no more white noise. And so I just wanted to say, we have 2 programs that we've designed, and this video tells it a lot better than me. So that was our day and a half of our assessment centre. So we decided that we didn't want to do a normal assessment centre. So we did a kind of apprentice type assessment centre, and everyone was observed for the whole duration from when they started to get their kind of teaser campaign 3 weeks out, right through to they've just been having one-to-one feedback sessions over the last 2 weeks. And we're now in enrolment phase. People are enrolling onto either our level 3 or our level 5 programme. And so the next bit for us is that we're meeting with Julian in a couple of weeks to design our project for the cohort, which is part of our 20% off job learning, which is going to be a business-based project. So again, it's all very relevant. So we're still in a very early phase. We're still learning as we go. But compared to the beginning of 2015 to standing here today, the clarity that we have is phenomenal compared to that point in time. I'm sure we'll have moments again of white noise, but we feel very confident now that we've got our heads around it, and we're looking forward to our own next as an organisation.